Greetings, Earthers, Martians, Belters, members of the OPA. Welcome to episode 6 of Expanse, the Unofficial podcast. I'm your host, Lex Starwalker, and with me today is Nikki Starwalker. Welcome to the show, Nikki.
Hi, Lex.
So today we are going to discuss Wes Chatham in his role as Amos Burton. But before we get into that, just a quick announcement. We did come to a decision regarding the pilot episode, which is being released to various streaming outlets next Monday, November 23rd. And we had a few people vote on our poll. And until very recently, everybody was for it. We have one person now that's voted nay, but Nikki and I have decided to go ahead and talk about the pilot next week.
Yes, one person, and you know who you are. They didn't say why they didn't want us talking about it, but I'm glad that 93% of the people that voted said yes, because I really am looking forward to this.
Yeah, and I should point out like 10 people voted, so it's not really a good sample size. So, you know, may or may not be representative of all the listeners and what they really want. And ultimately, it's up to Nikki and I what's best for the show. And with the pilot coming out next week, anything else we might discuss might seem a little anticlimactic or a little bit off topic.
Very true.
And one of the commenters on the thread made a really good point, which is, you know, it's probably a fairly safe assumption that anybody listening to this podcast is probably tech savvy enough to find the pilot and watch it online if they want to. So episode 7 of Expanse, the Unofficial podcast, will be about the first episode of the TV show. And if you're not able to catch it online next week, just don't listen to episode 7 if you don't want to be spoiled. Wait till December 14th, and then you can listen to it.
Yeah, there you go. But I do encourage everyone to find a way to watch it with us on the 23rd.
Yeah, and among many other places, it will be available on Sci-fi.com's website. It will be available on Amazon. It will be available on Hulu. And if you want to see the full list, just head on over to starwalkerstudios.com/expanse and check out the show notes for episode 5. I've got all the ones that were publicized listed there. There's quite a few. If nothing else, just Google Expanse pilot, and I'm sure you'll find something. But yeah, I'm really excited to see that next week, and I'm really excited to talk about it. And then we're going to have a couple, 2 or 3 weeks until December 15th when we get to see episode 2. So we will spend that time finishing up our discussion of the main actors and characters in the show. And then once the show launches, we'll be discussing the show finally, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, me too. It's coming up fast.
So on to our corrections and retractions. We do have one correction this week, and I figured we would. Pretty much anytime I start talking about things that happen in the books, I can pretty much be guaranteed that I'm going to get something wrong, and I'm going to have to correct it. The main reason being that it's been, I don't even know how long, probably at least 6 months since I read Leviathan Wakes. I did start rereading it yesterday, so I'm rereading it now. And yeah, really enjoying it. And this was something I was planning to do all along just before the show came out to kind of have it fresh in my mind. Because I'm really curious, you know, what's going to be different in the show and what's going to be the same, and just how the story unfolds differently compared to the book. So I really want to have the book fresh in my mind when I watch the show. But then it's just become very clear that doing this podcast, if I'm going to, you know, go into much detail at all, it's better to have it more fresh in my mind so I'm not getting things wrong every week. So Ty was kind enough to point out on Twitter that I was going to have a retraction this week, because last week we were talking about Alex Kamal and how he has this Texan accent, and we were wondering, or I was, you know, whether that was something that the people on Mars just decided to do, or how that kind of came to be. And it actually is talked about in the first book. And I want to thank one of our listeners, Brendan Agatisa Boyle, probably said that wrong, on Google Plus, who was the first to correct us on this. And Brendan says, just a note on Alex's accent, he comes from a part of Mars which was originally colonized by people from Texas. So the people there have kept the accent over the years, but yeah, so it's not something they just did for the hell of it.
Right.
So I was actually rereading Leviathan Wakes, and this section is actually in the first chapter.
Oh, okay.
Because we have a prologue, and then I think it's chapter 1 where they mention this. So I actually wrote down a little quote here so we can be all official and 100% correct.
Great.
So Mariner Valley on Mars had been settled by East Indians, Chinese, and a small contingent of Texans. Apparently, the drawl was viral. They all had it now. So that's from page 28 of the paperback, anyway, of Leviathan Wakes. So that's why Alex has a Texas accent, and I think we're pretty much certain that the Alex in the TV show is going to have a Texas accent, because you were pointing out, Nikki, that Cass Anvar on his Instagram is role-playing as the character and uses the Texas accent.
That's right, yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So that's our only correction or retraction. And, Ty was kind of giving us a hard time about, we need to get this right or whatever. So I told him that I'm rereading the book because I'm tired of making these stupid mistakes. So hopefully we'll have a better record from here on out.
Okay, awesome.
Actually, it's just a gimmick to see who's paying attention, because I crave attention. So I know if I make a mistake, someone's going to email me and correct me, right?
Well, you are a podcaster.
I am. All right, so let's move on to our main topic today, Wes Chatham. So, Nikki, you want to tell us a little bit about Wes Chatham and what we might know him from?
Sure thing. Wes has a very interesting backstory.
Okay.
He grew up in Georgia, and on a whim, his mom took him to a Tide audition with his sister. I think originally his sister was going to be in the commercial, or that was his mom's plan, but the casting director saw Wes and offered him a deal with Tide. So that was kind of his first step, and they actually have a picture of him in this little ad on his website where I'm reading my information from. His official website is officialweschatham.com, and he's also on Twitter, and he has a Facebook fan page. We will post these things in the show notes, and he's on Instagram. So he's pretty much everywhere, and it's really fun to follow him on Twitter and see his little insights into his role on The Expanse and also his role on the Hunger Games Mockingjay. Wes was in The Barbershop, which was a TV series. He played Isaac, and that was in 2005. And he was also in The Unit, which was a TV series as well. And I'm getting these things on IMDb if you want to look it up yourself. He was in a movie called The Philly Kid. That was his first title role.
Okay.
And he was also in The Hunger Games Mockingjay, Part 1, and he will appear in Part 2.
And what's his character in that?
In those two movies, he plays Castor.
Okay.
In 2012, he was in The Mentalist. He played a character named Vince. He was in The Valley of Elah as Corporal Steve Penning in 2007. He was in a movie called Husk as Brian, and he was also in The Help.
Awesome. So he's been in lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And we just watched the first part of Mockingjay last night. To see him was really the main reason we watched it. And he was in it.
Yeah, sadly, we watched it mainly for him, and he seemed to have maybe one line, so that was a little sad.
Yeah, I think he has a bit more of a central role in the second movie. I don't know. I mean, I don't pay any attention to, what's it called, Hunger Games. But just from what I've been seeing through the grapevine on Twitter and the news, it seems like he has a bigger part in the one that's coming out soon. But I could be wrong.
No, I think you might be right. Just looking at his Instagram feed and seeing some of the pictures from the set, it does look like he's on camera a bit more.
Cool. And hopefully has some lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to get on a tangent, but boy, was that movie slow.
Oh, it's terribly slow. It's painfully slow, really.
Yeah. It's always questionable when they're basing movies on books and they split a movie or a book into two parts, or split a movie into two parts. The first time I really remember it is with one of the Harry Potter movies. And I mean, I haven't obviously seen the second part of Mockingjay yet, but going by how slow and just boring the first one was, I think they could have easily condensed it into one movie.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I haven't seen the second one yet, but the first one got so slow that at one point we were watching the main character play with a flashlight and making the cat kind of chase the flashlight. And I'm sitting there thinking, we're watching a cat video right now.
Yeah, that scene had nothing to do with anything.
It wasn't necessary.
Oh, well, but this isn't a show about that. Thank God, because boy, would I be ready to cancel this podcast. All right, so getting back to The Expanse. So Wes Chatham has been in a lot of stuff. Honestly, I don't think I've seen any of those things.
Me neither.
It's weird because I know who he is. I know his name, I know his face, and I just assume that I've seen him in tons of stuff. But when you went through the list, other than Mockingjay, I don't think I've seen any of those things.
Yeah, same here. I have been thinking about getting into The Mentalist, but I haven't seen any of his movies yet.
Yeah, so he is playing Amos Burton. And Amos is someone we can talk about a little bit more intelligently, I think. So Amos is the mechanic. And also another area we were having some confusion is kind of what people's initial positions were on the Canterbury, and we were wondering, was Naomi the engineer, and we finally figured out that she was. Well, I just read this part, yesterday. In the beginning of the story, Amos is Naomi's assistant.
Oh, okay.
So Naomi's like the chief mechanic or chief engineer. I'm not certain which term they use in this. On the Canterbury, and he's her assistant. And there's this funny little scene with him and Naomi and Holden where Amos says, "Hey, boss," and we're in Holden's head, and Holden's thinking about how he knows that he's talking about Naomi and not him, because even though Holden's the XO on the ship, in Amos' mind, the only person that's his boss is Naomi.
Right, that's right.
So it's I read that and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember all this. How could I forget? Because that was so funny, and you kind of see that throughout at least the earlier parts of the story, where Amos really answers to Naomi, and he's always looking to her for what he should do.
Right.
More than Holden.
Yes, we know where his loyalty lies.
Yeah, so Amos is Naomi's assistant, and later on as well, he's one of the mechanics on the ship. I guess we'll just say it that way. He's very good with mechanical things. But another big role that he plays is he's kind of the tough guy. Right, Nikki?
Yep.
He is not afraid to shoot someone. He is not afraid to punch someone. In the book, he's described as large and intimidating physically, and usually doesn't smile much. And when he does smile, seems to make people more scared, not less scared. Yeah, in the latest book, Nemesis Games, we get chapters from his point of view, and it's kind of funny sometimes when he's trying to be reassuring to people and smile or whatever, and it just makes them more nervous because he's not very good at smiling. But yeah, he's kind of, the stereotypical badass, not super in touch with his feelings, not much for conversation. But when it's time to throw down, he's your man.
That's right. And I like the character because he seems to know not only where his loyalties lie, but what he believes in and what he will fight for.
Yeah, totally. And like a lot of the characters in the show, especially the characters that are on the Canterbury, he does have a mysterious past that eventually we will learn more about. And I guess I'll say this, and then you can tell me if you think this is a spoiler and I should cut it out. But I think it's in Nemesis games. It might even be earlier, because I feel like I see him say this more than once in the series. But he says something to Holden along the lines of he follows Holden because Holden has a sense of morality that Amos knows he himself doesn't have. So he doesn't really trust himself to make the right decision, but he knows that Holden will make the right decision. So it's kind of like, I know I'm not a good man, but Holden is. So if I follow Holden and follow Holden's lead, then at least I'm not a complete monster like I would be on my own.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do you think that's spoilery?
No.
All right, cool. Maybe I'll leave it in. If not, you'll never know that I took it out. It was ever there. I was thinking about characters to compare to Amos, and he kind of, who kind of reminds me a little bit of Amos is Five from Dark Matter.
Yeah, I could see that.
Kind of the way that he's kind of abrasive, and people that don't really know him just assume he's an asshole. But there's some, they're alike in some ways. There's some major differences, because like Five is really an all right guy who just like has this kind of tough exterior, and he doesn't want you to know that he's actually a decent guy, and he just acts like an asshole. Where Amos is, what you see is what you get with him. Like, he's not acting or trying to be a tough guy. That's just who he is.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say that he is an asshole, though.
No.
Or that other people see him as an asshole.
No.
They just see him as a tough guy.
Yeah. And that's, that's why my comparison between the characters, like, is just like certain things, because like Five tries to be a jerk, and he wants people to see him as a jerk, to the point where if he's doing something nice, he'll be an ass about it, where Amos is actually, he's just very straightforward. Like, he is what he is. There's not really many deeper layers to him, but it's interesting because there are times where he does things that are so violent and callous that it's kind of chilling. And then there are other times where he shows such loyalty and protectiveness to his friends that it's kind of touching. So it's kind of cool to have these very different, opposite kind of moments with the same character.
Yes. I will be so interested to see how much of the character in the book is alike to the character in the film or in the TV show. Yeah,
I totally agree. So I got to ask, Nikki, we haven't, I guess, seen a lot of stuff with Wes Chatham in it, but we've seen him. Does he fit kind of your mental pickage, your mental picture of kind of how you imagined Amos from reading the books?
Yes, he does, for me, fit quite perfectly. And the actor, Wes, was in the military for a while. And so that was kind of maybe helps him look like the tough guy Amos on screen, or it will.
Yeah, it's funny because, I think we've talked about this a little bit with other characters, like whether or not they kind of fit our mental picture. And for me, as far as like just the physical, like what does this person look like? He doesn't really. I always pictured someone more along the lines of Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Is that his name, The Rock?
Yeah.
Or like Vin Diesel, like one of these just huge, just all muscle, guys that like a normal dude standing next to him would feel small. You know what I mean? Because so many times in the book, they reference how physically imposing he is. And so it doesn't really fit for me in that way. But of all the characters, I feel like him matching my mental picture is the least important, because all of that, what's the imposing, how it,
I know.
All of his physical imposingness can be done through acting, right? I mean, you can have someone who's intimidating because they're Dwayne Johnson and they're just huge and they look like they could crush your head without breaking a sweat. But you can have someone else who's just as imposing just through sheer force of personality and how they behave and body language and stuff like that. So I'm not really concerned, even though he's not really what I pictured. But I agree with you that the kind of like going the kind of military angle with him would be a cool way to go.
Yeah, and I have to fight back here for Wes because I think you haven't seen the right trailers. I'm going to show you a trailer from Philly Kid, one of his movies, where he is incredibly buff and just huge, and he does feel very imposing on screen. Okay.
But is he 6 feet tall? 6 feet plus?
That I don't know. I did not look up his height.
It's hard to tell, on TV or movies, how tall these people are.
Yeah.
I remember when I found out how short Luke Skywalker really was. It was really a shock for me.
Aw.
Even though Leia said, "Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?"
Well, IMDb claims that he's 6 feet.
Okay, cool. It's funny because I've said on the show before how I'm not someone that when I am reading a book, I try really hard to like build this mental picture of the person, and so maybe that's why, like, when I see an actor playing a role, I'm like, oh, that's not what I pictured, because maybe I didn't really picture anything. It was just this kind of vague sense. And of course, no one's going to look like whatever that would be. But that's funny because I find more often than not, when I see someone playing a role from a book, I'm like, oh, that's not what I pictured.
Right.
But yeah, right before I saw that person, if you asked me, what do you picture for this character? I probably wouldn't be able to give you much.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm much more interested in his performance because physical stuff is just like, I mean, first of all, it can all be changed pretty easily. And second of all, it just doesn't matter.
Right. And I think that if you keep your mind open and the acting is delivered well, which I believe it will be with Wes, the picture of the character will change in your mind. And before you know it, it will become Wes when you're reading the book.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing is, it's not, I'm trying to think how many times in the books, like Amos, like battered someone physically versus just, shot him with a gun. And I can't really remember, but it does seem like, in this, you see a lot less of like brawling.
Yeah.
Because they've all got weapons, right?
Right.
So why would you go to the effort of beating someone to death when you could just shoot them?
Right. Yeah.
It's all about efficiency.
That's right. And I imagine the character is so buff because of his job, right?
Yeah. Moving those huge blocks of ice around is not easy. And yeah, in the book they're described as icebergs.
Oh wow!
And I did verify reading in the book that they are getting the ice from the rings of Saturn.
Okay.
Which I think originally I had said by mistake that they were getting it from the asteroid. It was just kind of a slip of the tongue. And then later I was like, oh no, I think it was the rings of Saturn. But I wasn't sure. But now I'm sure because I just read it like a day ago. So they're getting these huge icebergs of ice from the rings of Saturn and then taking them to the belt.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah. So, Nikki, what do you think of the character of Amos? Because I could see this being a character you wouldn't be terribly fond of a lot of times.
Honestly, I really like him in the books. He's one of my favorites, and of course, it's really hard to pick favorites, but I like him because he, like I said, kind of knows when to act and when not to act. He doesn't have to think too hard about it. He follows his gut on those things, or he follows a leader that he trusts.
Yeah, I think Amos is a friend that everybody wishes they had, right? Like doesn't everybody kind of want that friend that can just kick anybody's ass and would be happy to do it if you just ask them, or just don't tell them not to?
Yep.
It's like having a very ferocious dog on a leash that you could just let go at any time. It's pretty cool. I think the thing to me that I really like about him is just how loyal he is to Holden and the other people on the crew. I mean, you see that a lot in characters and stories. You know, it's nothing new that, oh, I'm loyal to my friends. It's like pretty much a cliche. But it's more meaningful with him because the more you learn about him, you learn like he's not a nice guy. Like he's not what we would call a good guy. You know, like he's done a lot of really bad things and will continue doing really bad things. So it's really cool to see this person who makes the decision of, I'm going to hang with these people, partly because I'm a better person when I'm around them than I am when I'm by myself. And I don't really have it in me to be that person on my own. So I'll hang with these people because I'm a better person when I'm around them. And I think that's really cool. And he's definitely one of the characters that I am most curious about seeing how he grows in the future.
Yes. And I find it very admirable that he is that self-aware.
Yeah, really. Because, you know, that's going against type, right? Because usually, you know, in a story, the big brawny, you know, fighter guy is usually not terribly self-aware, right? He's not the thinker, right? It's usually the thinker that's more self-aware. And it's like, well, no, he's still not really a thinker, but he's self-aware. You know, he's got some wisdom. You know, he's been around, you know, he's learned from his mistakes. And I always say, like, every episode, I know I'm like, you got to read Nemesis Games. But there are some hilarious scenes between him and Avasarala in Nemesis Games.
Oh, fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Those two are some fun together.
Excellent. I can imagine the two character types really kind of getting along in an unusual way.
Yeah. And I also think some of the best humor in the books, at least, is between Amos and Holden.
Okay.
Because sometimes they have some really great back and forth. And yeah.
Oh, neat. And maybe it's because I'm not as far as you are in the series, but I haven't seen him be a truly terrible person in my mind.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's kind of things that are revealed in Nemesis Games, but he does seem to be kind of hard on himself.
Yes.
So sometimes I wonder, is it really as bad as he makes it out to be?
Right.
But I kind of think it is, probably.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there has to be lack of confidence when you just want to follow somebody else's moral code instead of deciding for yourself.
Yeah. But it'll be fun to see what Wes Chatham does with the role, because I don't know, I feel like Amos is a little more open than some of the other characters as far as how he could be interpreted by the actor. I feel like the framework for Amos is a little bit more, I don't know, just more open. I can't think of another way to say it. Like, that character could be played numerous different ways while still being true to the character as it is in the book. So it will be really fun to see how Wes presents him and how he decides to play him. And the directors and the writers as well, I'm sure, for the TV show are all involved in shaping this character. But I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too.
And it's kind of funny because when I first started reading these books, if you would have told me, hey, you know, in the future, Amos is going to be one of your favorite characters and you're really going to dig him, I wouldn't have believed you, because, you know, again, kind of how he's presented, it's just kind of what you see is what you get. He's the tough guy. He's the bouncer, you know, and it just, you know, at first blush, it's like, oh yeah, this guy isn't going to be terribly interesting. He's just there to beat people up. But as you go deeper into the story, you start to realize, actually, he might be one of the more interesting characters. Not that there are really any of the main characters that aren't interesting, but yeah, he's I guess they're all my favorite, but he's definitely one of my favorites because he can really surprise you.
Yes, he definitely intrigues me, and I think that they make him into a more human character.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not an actor. I have zero acting experience. But I imagine if I was an actor, that being able to play a role like that, I think would be a lot of fun. Because it's like, you know, you have a pretty solid idea of what the character is like. So like you have that foundation to build on, but there's still like room for interpretation and room for you to decide, how am I going to present this character?
Yeah. And I mean, yes, you don't have any formal acting experience, but you're a role play gamer. So is this character a type of character that you would create and play in one of your games?
You know, he's probably not one I would create because it's just not normally the type of, like, I usually like playing like the more charismatic character or the more kind of brainy character.
Okay.
But if for some reason I did create this character, I would have a lot of fun playing it.
Okay.
Or if it was like a pre-gen and someone's like, here, play this character, I would have a blast with it.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah. Because I never get to be the tough guy in real life. So that would be fun.
That's how I am too with him. I kind of live vicariously through Amos because I wish I could pound people down, but like Ronda Rousey or something.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about Wes Chatham. We talked a little bit about Amos Burton. Anything else to say on either of those topics, Nikki?
No, but I am very much looking forward to see what Wes does with the character.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait. All right. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for us for episode 6 of Expanse, the unofficial podcast. Really looking forward to next week. So next week, episode 7 will be about the first episode of the TV show.
Wow, how exciting. On Sci-Fi's website, they just released the opening credits. So if you want to get a sneak peek and watch those and also listen to the music, you can do that. We're going to have a link on the show notes.
Yeah, I keep meaning to look at that when I'm on my computer. I've tried like 3 times on my phone, and I don't know what kind of scripting or whatever they're using on the site, but it won't work on my phone. So I've I've read people on Twitter like going on about how awesome the music is. So I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, we should watch it on the big screen, the television, because I've been having trouble on my tablet too.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of encoding Sci-Fi is using, but maybe it's Flash. I bet it's Flash. Are they like still in the 90s using Flash?
I don't see how they could be.
But that would explain why it doesn't work on my phone though. They're not using HTML5 if they're using Flash.
True.
I mean, what else could it be?
I don't know.
QuickTime or some bullshit like that? Just scroll through these images really fast. Old school animation. If you would like to reach us, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at expansepodcast@gmail.com. Please visit our website, starwalkerstudios.com/expanse, where you can find the show notes. We'll have links to various information about Wes Chatham, including how you can find him on Twitter and follow him on Twitter. And if you go check out the show notes for the previous episodes, we have lots and lots of good links for more Expanse stuff. And another great place to find more stuff about the Expanse is our Google Plus community. So you can just go to Google Plus and search for Expanse, and we're still the only Expanse community on Google Plus, as far as I know. Or you can just go to the show notes at starwalkerstudios.com, and there will be a nice red join our Google Plus community button up there, which one of these days I'm going to take that down because it's really ugly, but it makes it easy. And also, we're both on Google Plus, and you can follow us and keep up with us there. Just search for Lex or Nikki Starwalker. And I'm on Twitter at Lex Starwalker.
I'm at Nikki Starwalker.
And yeah, that's all our stats. That's all the ways you can get a hold of us. And we love to hear from listeners. Let us know what you think of the show. Let us know what you think of the casting. Are you as happy and excited with the casting as we are? I feel like every single role, they just nailed it with the casting.
Yeah, me too.
And I know that Ty and Daniel are both really happy with it from what they say on Twitter. So, I mean, that's awesome. Even some of the more minor characters that we're not going to have time to talk about before the show starts, I think they nailed it with those guys too. Really excited.
Really? I haven't seen many of the other casting. I'm going to have to do more research.
Yeah. Until next week, conserve your oxygen and your water. Resources are precious out in the outer solar system.
So long, and thanks for all the fish.